Hello everyone, my name is NORFARLIZA binti Mama FAISAL. My number matric is BB22110094. I will present for issue number 1. Can JADE Construction refuse the shipment due to discrepancy in the insurance certificate of conformity and other documents? Under a FOB term, seller responsibility ends once goods are on board and export documents are provided. Capital Machinery Ltd. fulfilled the obligation by delivering the goods to JADE Construction Ship and handling the export document. Under UCP 600 Article 4A, a letter of credit works separately from the sales contract. For Article number 6, bank deal with document, not goods. Discrepancy allow refusal of payment but not break the sales contract unless they significantly affect the good of obligation. Article 14A can be used to prove that first bank is allowed to reject the document that have been prepared by capital machinery because of some problem as First Bank has stated. Article 16C, which allow the rejection of document and must inform capital machinery. Discrepancy in the insurance certificate and certificate of conformity lead to payment issue under UCP 600. They don't invalid the underlying sales contract unless they constitute a major breach. Article in UCP 600 established that bank deals strictly with document and not actual goods. The rejection does not invalid the underlying sales contract unless the discrepancy directly affects the seller obligation under the FOB terms. The case law that relates with this scenario is Stan v. Schroeder in 1941, issue with payment don't break sales contract unless goods are affected. It was clarified the issue with a letter of credit don't affect the sales contract unless the goods themselves are defective. The second case law is Equitable Trust Co. v. Dawson in 2007. Strict compliance for letter credit is required. The case puts further reinforced the requirement for strict compliance in document under letter of credit. In conclusion, the discrepancy in document primarily affect the payment process, not the shipment itself, unless the discrepancy are severe enough to breach the seller contract. JADE Construction cannot refuse the shipment.
Hello everyone, my name is IZATY binti ROSLAN with number matrix of BB2110567. So, I will continue my group presentation today with our second issue, which is can JADE Construction refuse the shipment of goods which is 1,000 industry machinery just because of First Bank refused to honor the letter of credit due to discrepancy in the presented documents. So, we look into our rule that we use in our group assignment, which is under UCP 600 Article 2, the letter of credit is independent of the underlying sale contract. Disputes about the letter of credit do not automatically affect the obligation under the sale of contract. Meanwhile, according to UCP 16 Article 4A, the credit transaction is separate from the sale or contract between Capital Machinery Limited and JADE Construction that may be based on it. And this article also supports that First Bank only deals with documents that have been prepared by Capital Machinery Limited, not goods or services that have been agreed upon between these two parties. Other than that, based on the UCP 600 Article 14A, First Bank must determine whether document complies strictly with the terms of the letter of credit. Moreover, UCP 600 Article 15 states that First Bank must honor the credit if the documents submitted by Capital Machinery Limited comply with all conditions. However, discrepancy in the document gives reason to the First Bank to refuse payment. This statement also supported by UCP 600 Article 16C. Moreover, as stated in FOB conditions, the seller, which is Capital Machinery Limited, has the responsibility to conclude when the goods which are 1,000 machinery are placed on the chosen vessel and authorized for export. The risk and responsibility for the goods pass the buyer, which is Jaya Construction, when they are delivered on board. So, Jaya Construction cannot cancel or decline to fulfill the sale agreement solely because of problem with the letter of credit, except when the Capital Machinery Limited default is deemed a significant violation of the sale of contract. A real case law that we use in this case is Hamze Malas and Sons versus British Imex Industries Limited in 1958. The court ruled that a letter of credit operates independently from the sales agreement, stressing that the buyer cannot withhold performance under the sales contract merely due to disputes regarding the letter of credit. However, in the case of British Imex Industries Limited versus Midland Bank Limited in 1958, a buyer may reject goods if the bank refuses to honor the letter of credit based on disparity. So in this case, Capital Machinery Limited completed its delivery responsibility by placing the goods on the designated vessel and obtaining export clearance. After the goods were loaded, the risk shifted to Jaya Construction, and the seller, which is Capital Machinery Limited, is no longer accountable for transportation and associated matters. To sum up this issue, Jaya Construction clearly cannot deny the shipment just because First Bank refused to honor the letter of credit. The letter of credit constitutes a distinct transaction according to UCP 600, and its rejection does not automatically invalidate Jaya Construction duty to accept the shipment if the seller, which is Capital Machinery Limited, has met its delivery responsibilities under FOB term. Thank you. That's all from me.
The third issue is, can Jaya Construction refuse the shipment based on the claim that the shipment was delayed due to Capital Machinery Ltd's failure to clear the goods for export? Under the FOB terms, the seller, in this case Capital Machinery Ltd, is responsible for delivering the goods on board the nominated vessel, clearing them for export, and providing the necessary shipping documents. Once the goods are aboard the ship, the responsibility shifts to the buyer, Jaya Construction. If Capital Machinery Ltd fails to meet its obligations, such as causing delays in export clearance, this could be a breach of contract. The key question is, was the delay significant enough to justify Jaya Construction refusing the shipment? If the contract specifies a firm delivery deadline or states that timing is essential, Jaya Construction may have the right to refuse the shipment if there's a delay. However, if the contract doesn't stress time as critical, the delay must be significant enough to affect Jaya Construction's ability to use or sell the goods for their intended purpose. If the delay was caused by external factors like customs issues, Jaya Construction may not have grounds to refuse the goods. The nature of the delay, along with the specific terms of the contract, must be evaluated to determine whether refusal is justified. In the case of Sihab v. Bremer, the court ruled that if the delay made the contract's purpose pointless for the buyer, it could justify contract cancellation. Also, the Bunch Corporation v. Tradex case reinforced that in international trade, timing is crucial. In conclusion, Jaya Construction can refuse the shipment only if they can demonstrate that Capital Machinery Ltd's failure to handle export clearance caused a significant breach of contract. Minor delays or delays caused by external factors will not suffice to justify refusal. In the end, the specific terms of the contract and the severity of the delay are key factors. The fourth issue is, did Capital Machinery Ltd comply with the requirements of the letter of credit under the UCP 600 for payment to be made? The letter of credit, in this case, plays an important role in facilitating payment between Capital Machinery Ltd and Jaya Construction, with the bank acting as an intermediary to ensure that payment is made upon the fulfillment of specific documentation requirements. Under UCP 600, Article 2 specifies that the letter of credit is an independent contract from the underlying sale agreement. This means that the bank's obligation to honor the letter of credit is not dependent on the fulfillment of the terms of the sales contract, but solely on whether the documents presented by the seller comply with the terms of the letter of credit. Capital Machinery Ltd in this case presented the necessary documents required under the letter of credit for payment, including a clean bill of lading, a commercial invoice, an insurance certificate covering 100% of the goods value, and a certificate of conformity from an approved agency. However, First Bank rejected the documents due to discrepancies in these documents, including the insurance certificate only covering 90% of the goods value, the certificate of conformity being issued by an unauthorized agency, and the documents being submitted after the expiration date of the letter of credit. Under UCP 600, particularly Articles 14 and 16, under UCP 600, particularly Articles 14 and 16, banks are required to examine the documents presented and determine whether they conform precisely to the terms of the letter of credit. Article 14A of UCP 600 states that the bank must assess the documents strictly in accordance with the terms set forth in the letter of credit. If there are discrepancies, Article 16C allows the bank to refuse payment. The principle of strict compliance, which is central to the functioning of letters of credit, holds that even minor discrepancies in the documents can justify the bank's refusal to honor the payment. In the case of Europa Case 1965, the court reinforced that the bank's responsibility is to check the documents alone, without consideration of the underlying transaction. The court ruled that if the documents do not match the exact terms outlined in the letter of credit, the bank is within its rights to refuse payment. This principle is evident in the rejection of Capital Machinery Ltd's documents by First Bank. Despite Capital Machinery Ltd's argument that the discrepancies were minor and should not prevent payment, the fact remains that the documents did not match the terms of the letter of credit in a way that would allow First Bank to honor the payment. The issues with the documents, particularly the non-compliant certificate of conformity, insufficient insurance coverage, and the late submission of the documents, are not insignificant under UCP 600. Capital Machinery Ltd failed to comply with the exact requirements laid out in the letter of credit, which led First Bank to reject the payment, while UCP 600 allows some flexibility in dealing with minor discrepancies. The law emphasizes that the bank is not concerned with the goods themselves or the performance of the underlying sales contract. Its solely focus is on whether the documents conform to the exact terms of the letter of credit. In conclusion, Capital Machinery Ltd did not fully comply with the terms of the letter of credit under UCP 600. The discrepancies in the documents, including the incorrect certificate of conformity, the inadequate insurance coverage, and the late submission were significant enough to justify First Bank's decision to refuse payment. While minor issues might not always invalidate a sales contract, they are sufficient to prevent payment under the strict compliance rule of UCP 600. Therefore, the bank's rejection of the documents and refusal to make payment was justified, and Capital Machinery Ltd did not meet the conditions required for payment under the letter of credit.